Today we're going to talk about how to work our calculator and how to put functions into the calculator in order to graph them or to see the tables. The first thing we need to do is hit y equals. It's this top button up here. That brings us up to our equation page. This is where we can put in our functions. So remember, our function notation, f of x, g of x, h of x, whatever the variable is can change too, is the same thing as y. So our y would be where our function notation is, and then we would put in the function. So if I wanted to put in a variable, I would click on this little variable button. I call it the variable button. You can see it down there kind of at the bottom. That's what I clicked to get the x. And if I said plus 3, if I said my function was x plus 3, then that is how I would enter it. Now, to see the graph of that function, you would then hit the graph button, and that kind of gives you an example. Now, if I wanted to see the table for that function, I would hit second graph. And if you see right above the graph button, it has the word table in blue. And so that gives you the coordinate points or the input and output values of the function. A couple other things you might want to know about is if you need to, let's go back to our graph button. If you need to see different window, maybe your graph is way off to the side or is much larger, how you can change, how you can zoom in or out of this graph is hitting this window button. And as right now you can see that we have a minimum of -10, a maximum of +10 on our x value with a scale of 1. What that means is my x-axis goes from -10 to +10 with 1 point increments. So if I wanted something different, all I'd have to do is change that. So I could put that, I can go down and change that to 2, or I could change that to 5. And if we wanted to see the graph, what it looked like a little differently, notice how those little tick marks are a lot further apart. Now they're every 5 units away. Our y didn't change, and our points go from -10 to +10 still. So we didn't change the window, we just changed the scale of our x-axis. So I'm going to go back to window and fix that. And go back to graph. See, our axis went back to normal. Okay, so that kind of shows you how to put it in, how to see the table, and how to change the window. But there's a couple things that you might need to know about, like how to put in some additional numbers and functions. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this because this is getting kind of out of hand. So you can see my keys. Once I'm in a graph, I can hit clear and it'll take me back to the main screen. So I'm doing this here. If you are doing it in the function, or if you're needing to enter the function, you could do this in the y equals, or we'll go ahead and put it in there. Okay, so going back, I'm going to delete this. And let's say I wanted to do a function that had x squared in it. How I would do that, let's say if I wanted to say 2, and then I wanted x squared. So I would hit my variable button, and then I would hit the x squared button. And what that does is that automatically gives me the power of 2, or raising that x to a power of 2. So I'm saying x times x there. And what if I wanted a different power? So let's say I wanted to say -3, and I'm going to say x, and I want the cubed power. So I'm going to hit this power button, raise up button. That's what I call it because it raises up the little cursor, and power of 3. So now I've raised that x to the power of 3. So those are just some different buttons to help put in our functions. You might also need some time to raise a coefficient to the power of a variable. I know that sounds really scary, but what I mean by that is maybe I want to say 1.5 to the power of x. So what if my variable is my exponent or that power? So you still use that same power button or raise up button to get that. Now, if you wanted to see what that graph looks like, we'll go to graph. And you can see it goes way up. That is an exponential function. We will dive into those later this year. But that is how to use your calculator to graph functions. Remember, you can also see the table to find the points or the input and output values by hitting second and table, and that gets you the value.